Good morning, Trumpet Nom. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever it is, wherever you are, and welcome back to the Easy Reavers Fish Room, where we are doing almost an 11sies. Almost. It is currently 10:20-ish in the morning on a Thursday morning. And I don't have a whole lot to talk about, but I have an announcement to make. I was going to think maybe some other announcements. I'm sure I'll come up with something. But I wanted to ask that anyone who's been enjoying the Tabernacle Church videos go and look for a new channel called Life Tabernacle Central Louisiana. Let me see if I can search for that. Life Tabernacle. I'm going to put in Life Tabernacle Central and see what shows up. They already... They apparently had a church channel before. Well, I just asked if I could create a YouTube channel for them. And it looks like they already had a YouTube channel that they retired 3 years ago. I wonder if anybody still knows how to log into that. I have to check into it. If so, I'm going to delete the channel that I just made. Anyway. So, once again, no notifications go out for the broadcast. Nobody knows that I'm streaming right now. Isn't that funny? This is the point where I would usually be talking to the channel people, talking to the subscribers and viewers, asking how they're doing and whatnot. Because that's what a random hangout's supposed to be. So another announcement, YouTube sucks. This is what it is to be shadow banned when your fucking notifications don't go out. The Russians at YouTube have decided you're too American. That's all it is. They've decided that you're too American for them to allow competent functioning of their infrastructure. So they sabotage the competent functioning of their infrastructure to keep you suppressed. If, like I said, if you're just too American for them. There's a lot of different crazy things about this channel, but none of them get targeted for YouTube suppression. The one common thread I see Whether you're Eric the Car Guy or David Packman, the more American, the more goodly natured, even, the content that you provide, the more likely it is you're going to be suppressed by YouTube. But they will never miss a beat showing you late night comedy. They will never miss a beat showing you a CNN upload about Trump. They'll even show you MSNBC videos, recommended, as long as they're about Trump. Let's see this MSNBC video about congressional disregard for Trump's disregard for congressional oversight.
Thanks to at home for joining us this hour. Very happy to have you with us. Halfway through the week already. Where does the time go? Whether or not you regularly follow the trade war part of this presidency, whether or not that is part of the diet of Trump-related controversial news that you choose to partake in on a regular basis.
So now you can find this full upload on MSNBC.com, of course, and MSNBC's YouTube channel.
Right? You can't gorge on all this stuff every day. You sort of choose your stuff to a certain extent.
Here is the lovely Rachel Maddow.
Even if you haven't been following the
I'm going to give a commentary on her little video
part
here.
of the Trump administration, if that hasn't been part of your regular diet of news about this president, odds are that you drive. Or maybe even if you're not a regular driver, odds are that you spend some time in automobiles and you recognize the centrality of automobiles to American life and the American economy. Well, whether or not you have been paying any attention at all to Trump trade war stuff, one of the things you should know that the Trump administration appears poised to do, and soon, is that the president is apparently getting ready to make a unilateral presidential decision to hike up the price of cars by several $1,000s each. President Trump has reportedly received from his Commerce Department a report that he requested, which gives him a national security pretext that lays out some sort of legalistic national security justification that is designed to allow him to make a solo decision to put big new taxes on imported cars, which would make them thousands of dollars more expensive.
You fucking shit,
Politico
man.
reported today on the content of that secret report that has already been given to the White House. The content of that report has been speculated about for a long time. It seemed pretty clear that this was the direction that Trump was going with this, but now Politico today reports not only has that secret report been delivered to the White House, but it does, as expected, give the president this national security pretext that he needs to be able to institute those taxes on his own. Now, the reason President Trump wants to do that, the reason he wants to impose thousands of dollars in price hikes on cars, is because he thinks this is a genius economic deal-making strategy against foreign countries. He apparently either doesn't care or doesn't believe that when he does this unilaterally to foreign-made cars, he doesn't get, or he doesn't believe, or he is willing to call the bluff that there will be a similar reaction in all the other countries that we export American cars to. I mean, everybody who looks at this type of economic policy believes that if we do this to other countries, they will do the same to us, and that will have the ultimate effect of pitchforking the whole U.S. auto industry, on which millions and millions and millions of American jobs depend. Not to mention what it's going to do to the price of cars for everybody, regardless of whether or not you depend on the auto industry or any of its subsidiary industries for your own job. Nevertheless, the president loves this idea, and apparently this policy decision is in the works from this White House. Now, regardless of what you think of this as a policy idea, regardless of whether you think it is a good idea to do this to the price of cars on purpose, one major consequence of this right now, which could matter for everything in this administration, is that the Republicans in Congress, and particularly Republicans in the Senate, are reportedly mad about this. And they're mad about this, A, because they don't want these tariffs on cars. But B, they want to see this secret report that has been provided to the White House, produced by the U.S. Commerce Department. This report that reportedly gives Trump the legalistic national security justification he needs to be able to impose this policy on his own citizens.
This is crazy.
So Republicans in Congress, Republicans in the Senate have been demanding that they be allowed to see this report. And the White House will not hand it over. And the Commerce Department will not hand it over. And the little miracle on the side of the road on this one is that apparently Republicans in Congress mind that. They apparently care. They are reportedly even slightly mad about it, which these days is like a full moon and
that's
a
crazy
four-leaf
too.
clover and a hen's tooth all wrapped up in one. I mean, Republicans really don't mind anything when it comes to the Trump administration. But apparently they mind this. And that might become important, not just on the question of whether the president is going to unilaterally make all cars way more expensive. It may really matter for everything. Tonight, the Wall Street Journal reports that new requests for documents and information are being prepared by the Judiciary Committee in Congress for a whole new bunch of people who have not yet been targeted by these congressional investigations. People like Gary Cohn, the president's economic advisor, also the president's sometime lawyer, Rudy Giuliani, even Trump's first Secretary of State, Rex Tillerson. We're going to finally start asking questions of Rex Tillerson. I have questions for Rex Tillerson, too. Like, sir, for example, how did you get that job in the first place? Anyway, I would love to know.
As would
now,
we all.
Even in this Wall Street Journal report, they're not suggesting that we have any information about what documents or what information are being requested from these folks. I should also mention that there's been pushback against this story tonight. Reporter Natasha Bertrand at The Atlantic is throwing a little bit of cold water on this story tonight, saying that her reporting indicates that any planned second wave of Judiciary Committee document requests isn't ready to go at this point, and the names reported by the Wall Street Journal tonight should not be seen as definitive targets of this committee. We've done some of our own reporting on this show that suggests that Natasha Bertrand's line here may be correct. But whether or not this second wave of document requests is going out, the first wave itself was pretty gigantic, right? 81 document requests from the Judiciary Committee alone. And I mean, everybody from the NRA to former White House official Steve Bannon to the Trump Inaugural Committee to the Trump Inaugural Chairman, Tom Barrack, to at least one of the Russians who went to the Trump Tower meeting during the campaign. I mean, all of these entities that have received these document requests from the Judiciary Committee, a lot of them have started handing over documents to the committee. As this committee, led by Chairman Jerry Nadler, pursues multiple lines of inquiry about the Trump administration and the transition and the campaign. And it's not just these document requests. Next week, a week from today, we're expecting some public testimony, televised testimony, before the House Intelligence Committee from Felix Sater, who, among other things, worked on the Trump Tower Moscow project during the campaign with Michael Cohen. We learned today that in addition to that partially open testimony next Wednesday, Felix Sater will also testify to Jerry Nadler's Judiciary Committee behind closed doors the following day, a week from tomorrow, next Thursday. The deputy chairman of President Trump's campaign, Rick Gates, who also served as the #2 official in the Trump inaugural, his lawyers today told the Judiciary Committee that Rick Gates cannot at this point cooperate with their request for information, but only because federal prosecutors have advised him that might be a bad idea. Quote, having received input from the various prosecution offices, I have concluded that for the time being, it is not in the interest of my client to provide testimony of documents to congressional investigators. Rick Gates, of course, is still awaiting sentencing on felony charges. Prosecutors said as recently as last week that his cooperation with prosecutors is still ongoing and it's still relevant to multiple pending and open investigations. So it's not a huge surprise that with that open criminal case against Gates and with his involvement in all those other ongoing cases, it's not that much of a surprise that prosecutors are telling Gates that he shouldn't cooperate with congressional inquiries at this time while all those other matters are open. Interesting, though. Even so, even with that, his lawyer also told the Judiciary Committee that that may soon change. quote, our position in this regard may well be different in the coming months, after Rick Gates presumably comes out the other side of his own criminal case and out the other side of his cooperation deal with the feds. CNN is reporting tonight that former White House communications director and longtime Trump Organization employee Hope Hicks also plans to cooperate with the Judiciary Committee in their inquiries. Hope Hicks and her attorney are not making any public comment, but the Judiciary Committee spokesman says tonight that Hope Hicks will be providing documents to their committee. AMI, the parent company of the National Enquirer supermarket tabloid that had a role in the hush money campaign finance felony scandal, they're handing over documents to Congress. Mike Flynn's company, the Flynn Intel Group, they're also handing over documents to Congress. A former employee from Cambridge Analytica, a Trump data firm from the Trump campaign, that employee has also reportedly shipped documents in response to the committee's request. So lots of people and lots of entities who you might expect to put up a fight or maybe try to take the fifth or somehow try to make themselves scarce at this point. Lots of people that you might not expect to be cooperating are cooperating, and they're sending in material. They're even meeting the deadline or getting close to it. But the White House is not doing any of that at all. The White House is thus far providing nothing to the Judiciary Committee in response to their requests. And more broadly than that, they are providing nothing in response to any congressional inquiries. Not just about the Russia scandal and the obstruction of justice stuff that derives from the Russia scandal, but on anything. They're refusing to hand over a single document. Oversight Committee Chairman Elijah Cummings has just published this op-ed at the Washington Post. Quote, I serve as chairman of the Oversight and Reform Committee, the primary investigative body in the House of Representatives. I have sent 12 letters to the White House on a half dozen topics, some routine and some relating to our core national security interests. In response, the White House has refused to hand over any documents or produce any witnesses for interviews. Let me
Still nobody here. Nobody here.
Turned over a single piece of paper to our committee or made a single official available for testimony during this conference. Quote, the complete refusal by the Trump White House to produce any documents or witnesses to the primary investigative committee in the House reflects a decision at the highest levels to deny congressional oversight altogether. The president has dictated this approach. President Trump's actions violate our Constitution's fundamental principle of checks and balances. If our committee must resort to issuing subpoenas, there should be no doubt as to why. And this is not just standard bickering between the executive branch and Congress, the kind of stuff you see a little of, at least in every administration. This is apparently a decision by the Trump administration that is a sort of a block decision. They're not making a case-by-case determination as to whether or not they're going to cooperate with this, or whether they're going to cooperate with this, or whether they'll hand over this document, or whether they'll make this person available. This apparently is their, forgive me, stonewall decision. On everything, no matter what the request, you will get nothing. And apparently this is the big new idea for this part of this presidency. They are rolling this out on purpose. Deliberately, they're rolling out this storyline to multiple news organizations. This is how you ended up with all these headlines all over the place today that all said essentially the same thing. Trump officials prepared to stonewall Democratic oversight demands. White House ignores House panel's request for documents. The Washington Post today lays it out as clearly as anyone. That this isn't just Capitol Hill fighting as usual. This is an intentional standoff being mounted by this White House in a way that no White House really ever has before. Quote, the White House has ignored more than a dozen letters requesting documents from House Democratic chairmen investigating President Trump. The White House has refused to share emails and correspondence. According to two senior administration officials, the move is intentional. Quote, those officials who spoke on the condition of anonymity to freely discuss strategy said the White House is intent on challenging most, if not all, House Democrats' document requests. We will give you nothing. They're not waiting to find out what they're being asked for. They're just announcing in advance, telling reporters, telling multiple news outlets in advance, no matter what they ask for, we're giving them nothing. And I am sure that is a strategy that appeals to every atom in every molecule in every cell of this president's body, right? I mean, this is like this fits his personality. Oh, the Democrats want control of Congress. They're going to use congressional oversight to oversee things, to investigate stuff I've done and this administration has done, to find stuff out? No. The answer is no. The answer is we will give you nothing. That's our final answer. You'll get zero from us. I am sure that kind of approach meets all of the emotional needs this president has around this issue in governance. The problem is, in America, this is not allowed. I mean, this has been tested before. Never categorically the way this White House is trying to do it, saying we'll give you nothing on anything. But this has been tried before on specific stuff by an American president who tried this strategy not all that long ago. And very, very, very famously, it did not work out for that president.
In this instance, the president has concluded that it would not serve the public interest to make the tapes available. Upon receipt of that letter, Special Prosecutor Cox called a press conference and announced that he would use his subpoena power to try to get the tapes. Cox disagreed with the position taken by Mr. Nixon.
The effort to obtain these tapes and other documentary evidence is the impartial pursuit of justice according to law. None of us should make assumptions about what the tapes will show. They may tend to show that there was criminal activity or that there was none. They may tend to show the guilt of particular individuals or their innocence.
In a letter to Senator Sam Ervin, chairman of the Watergate Committee, the president said that the tapes fall into the category of presidential papers, which, as he has said before, the president won't turn over to another branch of government. And upon receipt of that letter, the Senate Watergate Committee met and unanimously voted to subpoena the tapes. Here's some of what Senator Ervin had to say.
Upon the receipt of this communication from the White House, the Select Committee held a meeting and unanimously voted to authorize and direct the chairman to issue two subpoenas, one requiring the president to produce the tapes. I love my country. I venerate the office of president. And I have the best wishes for the success of the president incumbent of that office, because he's the only president this country has at this time. The president not only has constitutional powers which require him to see to it, or to take care that the laws be faithfully executed, and I think it's his duty under those circumstances to produce information which would either tend to prove or disprove that criminal activities have occurred. But beyond that, the President of the United States, by reason of the fact that he holds the highest office in the gift of the American people, owes an obligation to furnish a high standard of moral leadership to this nation.
The President owes it an obligation to furnish a high standard of moral leadership to this nation. Sam Ervin, Watergate Committee. In 1973, President Richard Nixon tried to make history when he decided he didn't need to hand over to Congress anything he did not want them to see that pertained to Watergate, specifically the White House tapes that they had come to learn the existence of. That forced a subpoena on the White House for those tapes. Nixon defied the subpoena. That ended up in court. The special prosecutors' demand for those materials, those tapes, ended up going all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court. And, you know, this is really famous. I mean, even, let's say you only know three things about Richard Nixon. What are the three things you know? You'd know, like, Nixon had to resign the presidency, had a dog named Checkers, Supreme Court made him hand over the tapes, right? Like, even if you only know three things about Richard Nixon, even if you know nothing else about Richard Nixon, you know that unanimously, in U.S. v. Nixon, the president was not allowed to say, no, you can't have it. I say you can't. But that no, you can't have it policy today was rolled out by the Trump administration. They plan to give no documents, no materials, to make no witnesses available. And again, we'll see how that works out. Honestly, in the courts, we know how it will work out. This has been tested before. This has been tried before. It doesn't work out well for a president who tries this. But in the meantime, while we
Nobody
are
here.
sorting down the
Still
facts,
nobody here.
In the meantime, if that is where this is heading, the speed at which this is all going to unfold and how everybody looks in the history books when it's all over
Kind of unbelievable.
will depend in large part on whether Republicans in Congress, members of the president's own party in Congress, can bring themselves to some level to care about a president who is trying to not only do this to Democrats, but try to do this to them as well. Joining us now is the great Michael Beschloss, NBC News presidential historian. Michael, very happy to have you with us tonight. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. Delighted, Rachel, always.
I knew that I wanted you here tonight, and particularly in the A block, because I knew I was going to make assertions about presidential norms and history here for this context of what the Trump White House is rolling out right now. I need to just ask you to fact check me on a little bit on whether or not this is in fact something that Nixon tested and he lost that test.
Yeah, Nixon tried it. You know, Nixon basically said to the Congress, I'm not going to give up my tapes. I'm not going to give up related materials because they're protected by executive privilege, which covers, you know, deliberations within the executive branch and also separation of powers. And that went to a federal district court, and they said they didn't have jurisdiction. So, as you showed us, Archibald Cox, the special prosecutor, and his successor, Leon Jaworski, went to court. They subpoenaed the tapes as well. Went up through the system, went to the Supreme Court, and Nixon sort of cynically thought maybe he's going to prevail on the court because he appointed 4 out of the 9 justices of the Supreme Court, thought maybe they would do him a favor. It didn't work, of course. U.S. v. Nixon, July of 1974, 8-0. There was one who recused himself, which was William Rehnquist, who had served in the Nixon Justice Department. So if Donald Trump has been advised that this can go up through the courts and it'll go to a Supreme Court to which he has appointed Kavanaugh and Gorsuch, his 2 appointments might sort of defend it in the end, I think he'd better look back at Nixon and realize that history rhymes.
In terms of the White House rolling this out explicitly, that's the other part of this that strikes me here. We are not at a point where there is a specific document that a lot of people believe may be a smoking gun,
right,
that they're trying to pry out of the White House, and the White House knows how damning it's going to be. I mean, this isn't exactly the same kind of standoff, the specific standoff they had over those White House tapes. We had testimony as to what was on the tapes.
And we all wanted to hear the tapes.
Everybody wanted. This is the White House in advance broadly asserting that they are going to do this and telling reporters about it, putting out White House officials on the condition of anonymity to explain that this is a deliberate strategy, and they want newspapers to write about it. And it strikes me in the Trump administration doing that they think that there will be some political benefit to them to taking this kind of black and white stance with the Democrats.
Totally. I mean, it keeps his secrets, whatever secrets he's worried about that are in those documents and other materials. He figures that it's going to play to his base, who would love to see Trump standing up to Congress. And the other thing is that if the Mueller report is coming out soon, this is a big distraction. People might notice this constitutional crisis more than they notice what's in the Mueller report. But the other thing, Rachel, that's different from the Nixon period and also Iran-Contra, where Ronald Reagan actually cooperated quite a lot with Congress, is that in the case of Reagan and Nixon, they at that point had to fear the very real possibility that they might be
Coffee time.
and convicted if it came to that. In Trump's case, he may just have calculated that the
good.
House is not going to impeach, and he's got Republicans in the Senate, and therefore the only thing he has to worry about is the courts, and maybe he has an undue, as I was saying earlier, feeling of complacency about how the Supreme Court might rule on this.
Michael, when Nixon did pick this kind of fight over the White House tapes, the Oval Office tapes back in 1973, did he expect that he would get support from his base, that it would become a rallying point of support for Nixon supporters and for Republicans more broadly, that he was saying no to the Congress, that he was saying, no, you can't have these tapes? I mean, one of the things that strikes me looking back at the historical record was that unanimous bipartisan vote in the Watergate Committee to issue a subpoena to the president for those things.
Smoothies didn't conquer cities. Meat did. Choose the original protein. Jack Lake Speed Force. Rachel Maddow Show starts right now. Good evening, Rachel.
Chris, I am super excited about your Green New Deal town hall thing. That's
I am
awesome.
too. I'm really. You know what? Here's the.
Just
Okay.
before we've even gotten started talking about anything. But we're going to
Trial of Donald Trump transition official may expose new Mike Flynn
start tonight
details.
with something that arrived in today's news as a surprise. About a week and a half ago, the Washington Post filed a motion with the federal court in Washington, D.C. that was handling the criminal case of the president's campaign chairman, Paul Manafort. And that motion from the Washington Post called on the judge in the Manafort case in D.C. to release unredacted filings and transcripts from Manafort's case so that the Washington Post and, by extension, the American people could get a gander at those documents. Specifically, the Post's motion called for unredacting a whole bunch of court materials from Manafort's case that related to how he broke his plea deal when he repeatedly, and the judge ruled intentionally, lied to prosecutors. The motion also called for the release of an unredacted version of the sentencing submission about Manafort that was filed with the court by Robert Mueller in the special counsel's office. It was fascinating, the parts we could see, but large parts of it looked like that. So the Post filed to have all that stuff unsealed. And you know, this is actually an important dynamic to watch. You know, today we got the public release of all these hundreds of pages of documents from the Michael Cohen trial. We'll be talking about a little later on. The reason we got all these documents released today is because of a motion filed with the court by the New York Times. Times asked the court to unseal all this stuff, which is why we got all this today, which is what drove the news cycle all day. In the Paul Manafort case, this motion to release all the stuff from his trial, it was filed with the court by the Washington Post. See, this is why you need to subscribe to more newspapers. They are doing good work with your money. Subscribe to your local paper. Subscribe to national papers that you read. Heck, if you've got the money to do it, give people gift subscriptions to those papers whenever it comes time to give a present. You will feel great about it. Your country needs you to do it. Half the news that we've got is stuff that newspapers dig up, but about another half of the news that we get is stuff they pry loose by other means. Anyway, in the Manafort case today, it's the what?
Well, this is obviously beating around the bush a little too much, so I'm going to watch this on my own time. But I highly recommend this one. Trial of Donald Trump transition official may expose new Mike Flynn details. Apparently my hair is exposing new parts of my bald patches. Anyways. So let's talk for a second about or I'll talk, because there's no let's right now, because nobody's fucking watching. Got at least 15 regular viewers here. All parts of the world. Nobody watching. Anyways. Isn't that special? But the macroeconomic shift, not just impact, an entire shift, like a paradigm shift in the automotive industry, would be devastating worldwide if we start charging American consumers thousands of more dollars per American car. And what Rachel Maddow missed is that American companies are stopping production on car-type vehicles for the most part. So the only actual cars will be foreign cars. So now we're paying more money to help on fuel economy. So basically, you're going to get a better deal buying a gas guzzler SUV here in America than you would by buying a Honda Accord or Toyota Camry. or even a Mercedes or Volkswagen, BMW. This seems to me made to target two things: the environment and our allies. Think about it. Who are the two most vital members of the United States Defense Alliance? Germany and Japan. Very interesting, historically, how they wound up becoming our great friends and allies. But those are our biggest and most powerful allies. You have France and Britain also selling cars to the United States in much smaller proportion. France not directly, it's only a mere components of Citroen cars that wind up making it here. Remember the exotics occasionally. But there's also a little bit of gray area here, because Ford and Chevy both build the cars that they come back here, the little cheap, tiny, fuel-efficient cars. They build those in Europe and Mexico, and Honda Civics get built in Canada still. You know, there's a lot of different things. Like, does this count as a foreign car? Does that count as a foreign car? If they're making the shell in Canada and then shipping it to the United States for final assembly with the motor installation and everything, does that count as a foreign car? If it's a foreign company, say Honda, building the Honda Accord here in America, or Acura, does Acura count as a foreign car company? It's foreign owned, but everything's made here. They put a Japanese engine in there. If he actually tries this shit, it's going to send auto manufacturers at home and abroad into panic mode. And you know who won't give a shit? Russia, China, North Korea. Oh, there's another one. South Korea. South Korea is going to shit, because then now you're going to have to pay a couple $1,000s more for a cheap-ass Kia. How well is that going to go? Anyways. What you need to do to stabilize the auto industry is basically make a no-haggle law. Allow manufacturers to set retail prices. Period. If I want to go pay for a brand new Honda Accord, it should be a set price. Boom. $23,499 or something like that. The trim model up should be a little bit more. The trim model up from that should be a little bit more. Based on set pricing, so that new car salespeople can just land people on the right car and not have to worry about people trying to get used car prices on a brand new car. Because when you're trying to haggle on a fucking new car, that's what you're doing. You're trying to get a used car price on a brand new car. Now, if you can find something wrong with a new car, maybe you're alleging that it's a demo model of some sort that a manager got to use for a while, Show evidence. Ask for a discount based on the evidence. But don't go into a fucking dealership and just start asking for money off the price because you want my money, so you're going to take less for yourself. That's bullshit, man. Dealerships themselves would be able to provide better customer care. Used cars would be of higher quality. But first and foremost, the largest number of people there, the sales people, okay, would be much more prosperous and much more able to contribute into the economy. You gotta understand, there are people with 4-year plus college degrees, people with master's degrees that wind up going into car sales because they're, comfortable with people and just repeating and conveying information. And you can sometimes make a lot of money doing car sales. Those people should be able to make more money than they are right now. Just like the entry-level salesperson should be able to make more money. People with master's degrees and stuff ought to be over in used cars. But anyways, another failed pitch from the administration of bad ideas. And yet another opportunity for me to show how simple the economy is to fix if you have good ideas. So, if you think that eliminating no haggle pricing, if you think that mandating manufacturer set retail pricing for new cars is a good idea, if you think those manufacturers know what their car is worth and know what it should sell for, and you think that their marketing strategy should be applied to its end, and you think people with money to buy a new car should just buy a used car if they want to haggle on the price,